It almost goes without saying that delaying or extending negotiations appears to be an extraordinarily bad strategic starting position, hence favoured by the Ramonas. However, that is not what is planned. The boss lady has clarified what is meant by transitional arrangements, and it is a relief to discover that her definition does not include extending the negotiation time or using it as an excuse to delay exiting the EU or invoking Article 50. Negotiations will be completed and we will no longer be part of the legal entity known as the European Union by April 2019. The transitional arrangements cover a period yet to be defined after this for businesses and bureaucrats to implement any changes needed due to the changed nature of the relationship. So, for example, if a company sells widgets to the EU and the relationship change means that they now have to complete a different form to export or pay EU import duty, then the transitional arrangements will allow the time for this process to be changed. I'm okay with this, and it seems like a sensible plan. Listen to May herself on the subject.
If I may answer in this way, because I think when people talk about transition, often different people mean different things by transition. There are some people who will talk about transition as a deliberate way of putting off actually leaving the European Union. For others, transition is an expectation that you can't get the deal in 2 years and therefore you've got to have a further period to do it. But if you think about what the process that we're going to go through, once we've got the deal, once we've got the new arrangements, there will of course be a necessity for adjustment to those new arrangements, for implementation of some practical changes that may need to take place. So there's a practical aspect of how you ensure that people are able to adjust to the new relationship, which is not about trying to delay the point at which we leave and is not about trying to extend the period of negotiation.
Of course, the transitional arrangements still need to be negotiated, and it is incumbent on us to ensure that these arrangements are not used as an excuse by the EU to burden the UK with conditions that are not appropriate to an independent nation. Specifically, I am referring to the contributions to the EU budget and the application of open borders. While it would be nice, for example, if the UK could continue to be involved in Erasmus and numerous science programmes, it would not, for example, be appropriate for us to fund the CAP or lunches for the European Parliament. The issue of UK residents currently living in the EU is likely to be another vector by which the EU attempts to shoehorn EU philosophy into the deal. While it may seem perfectly sensible to have a quid pro quo deal between the UK and the EU in their respective territories on this, I doubt the EU sees it that way. The only really acceptable trade deal, if indeed a trade deal can be brokered alongside the exit discussions at all, is a deal where free movement is curtailed. This will not sit well with the EU, and I expect it will be a major stumbling block. The other principles of free exchange of goods, services and capital are the only part that the UK should negotiate on. And frankly, services and in particular capital are the ones that I would accept as flexible negotiation points if that is the way that we can cut a deal on goods. The city is not going to move to Frankfurt, though it is possible that some companies may decide to have part of their business in the EU to get around any EU restrictions placed on services from the UK. Good. That means EU companies wishing to get around restrictions that are placed on them by the UK will have to have offices in the UK too, and at least then they'll be paying tax in this country. We also have to be aware of the dynamics of European politics. Most EU countries will want a good relationship with the UK. However, it is not in the interests of the EU to allow unfettered access to the EU market to an outside country, in particular to one that used to be part of it. If we can do it, so can others. May's strategy appears to be to talk as much as possible with national leaders to get them on side. So when proposals go to the European Council, they look favourably on UK-friendly ideas. Whether the EU is willing to stomach a good deal for us may rest on the results of national elections in the EU nations next year. If those parties who want their own independence do well, then there will be no good deal for the UK. If May delivers on Brexit, on schedule, then it is almost inconceivable that she will not win the next election in 2020, whatever else her government does. Yes, I am referring to the Snoopers Charter. Yes, I am aware of the irony that the EU are the ones blocking it and the fact that the action was originally brought by the now Secretary of State for Brexit. In any case, the Prime Minister's comments at the Liaison Committee certainly make it sound like we are actually going to be leaving the EU on schedule. Hopefully, the clarity of this point will at the very least mean Remoaners, both those in Parliament and outside of it, finally concede the point and start working towards a better future for an independent UK rather than still bitching about it from the sidelines.